Does weight now matter more than aerodynamics to the bike industry? Trends come and go in the bike world, and for the last decade, it's been aerodynamics, integration, disc brakes, and electronic gears, and rising prices, but we'll leave that to one side for a moment. The downside, unfortunately, to the trends is that the weight of a modern road bike is now much higher and heavier than what you would have got about 10 or 15 years ago, back in the days when bike companies were focused on lightweight. But modern bikes are more aero, and that's more important, right? Well, not for everybody, because I see lots of you are unhappy about the weight of bikes these days. You let me know in the comments on most of my bike reviews. And I wonder if the bike industry is now starting to listen to you all, because a few bike brands are launching products that are very much focused on being as light as possible. And it's got me wondering, is the aero focus now coming to an end, or just natural evolution as they reach a peak of aerodynamics and weight is firmly back on the agenda, something else to chase in the natural progression of modern road bikes? If that is indeed the case, then the UCI hasn't got the memo. The 6.8 kilo weight limit for all the pros hasn't budged in 20 years since it was first introduced, but they have been tweaking the aero regulations around tube profiles very recently. But I do wonder if the bike companies are really challenging this weight limit to a point where it might ever be properly discussed. So Orbea has launched a brand new road bike focused solely on being as light as possible, and Syncross has some crazy carbon fibre lightweight wheels to talk about, and there's a brand new Factor O2 van behind me if you missed that a few weeks ago. So let's dive in. Right, Orbea's Orca has been updated. It's a popular road bike for well over a decade now, but for 2023-24 it has a fresh new design entirely focused on weight, being as light as possible. And it's a really good looking frame with simple round tubes and non-drop rear stays that shuns the usual focus on aerodynamics, although we have integration with internal cable routing up front. And the result is a 750 gram frame and 6.7 kilos for a complete bike in a size 53, which is fairly impressive. But I don't think it's as light as it probably needs to be, because the bike that arguably got weight weenies excited the most in the last few years and pointed to what's really possible with a carbon fibre frame when it comes to weight is a Specialized S-Works Aethos launched 2 years ago. It really is astounding just how light that frame is, and despite being 2 years old and that Orbea Orca being brand new, the frame weight is still very, very impressive indeed, and frankly a bit disappointing that Orbea hasn't made a frame that they say is focused on being as light as possible, isn't closer to that Specialized S-Works Aethos. And then a few weeks ago, Factor unveiled this, the O2 van behind me, which aims to be as light as possible whilst also trying to be aero as well. That S-Works Aethos and the Orbea Orca have no aero really to speak of, although the Orbea does have internal cable routing, but the S-Works Aethos has no aero to speak of. This one does. The company claims it's nearly as aero as their pure aero race bike. Whether you believe that or not is down to you, but that is the company claimed for the new bike. And it's really light. This bike here, a size 56 with a SRAM red access group set, is 6.3 kilograms on my scales, and that's definitely more like it. That's closer to the Aethos and where the Orbea Orca probably need to be to live up to the claims of being a lightweight climbing focused bike. But while lightweight, neither the Orbea or the Factor are particularly lightweight compared to the Aethos. But why? If Specialized has shown it possible, and a demand, which I think there is, and Orbea have said they openly want to make a bike as light as they can, why is it not lighter? Why is the Orca not 600 grams or thereabouts? Is it complexity of manufacturing, design, price, or something else? I don't know, but let me know what you think by leaving a comment down below. Now, one reason why the Factor behind me is so lightweight are the wheels, which after the frame is the biggest area you can save weight on a road bike. And if you can't make a lightweight frame, then make some lightweight wheels. So these are the company's own design, and they weigh a claimed 1,146 grams, so seriously lightweight, yet are still deep enough to offer some aero, but not a lot. So the wheels, as you can see after the frame, is an area where you make big savings. And then the other day, something that got me really excited. Syncros dropped some amazing one-piece carbon fiber wheels, and oh my goodness me, they look amazing. They look insane. So Syncros is the component brand of Scott bikes. Just in case you don't know, you'll find Syncros parts, so saddles, wheels, handlebars and stems on most Scott bikes these days. But back in the late 80s was a really cool independent parts company. Now these new wheels, the capital SL, are made entirely from carbon fiber in a one-piece design process. That's what we've seen over the years from other wheel brands, but it's still very rare. So with a 40mm deep rim, they weigh an astonishing 1,170 grams, about the same as the factory wheels, but much more aero, and more stiffer as well, according to the company's claims. It's saying these new wheels offer 20% lower rotational inertia than rival wheels, something I like to find out for myself for sure. There are just 16 fat carbon spokes and they're molded directly into the rims and hubs all at the same time, although the hub is actually created by spokes running right across the wheel set to keep the hub and the flanges as small and lightweight as possible. The rims though are still nice and wide at 25mm and they're hookless as well, and they're hookless to create a stronger, lighter weight rim. There's also a deeper 60mm version as well, so the Aero version of the wheel set, and they still weigh 1,290 grams, so still lightweight despite all the aero. Sounds amazing, right? And you want to rush out and buy some. I understand, I do too. But they are jolly expensive. You're looking at around £4,000 for the wheel set. So making lightweight components is still an expensive job, it seems. But are we wrong to want lighter bikes? Does weight really matter? And with a bigger focus on weight with new frames and wheels, doesn't mean aero doesn't matter anymore. Well, no. As Nathan Barry, the aero designer from Cannondale, said when I chatted to him earlier this year, video link down below, at about 15 kilometers per hour on a flat road, 50% of your energy is overcoming drag, and that goes up the faster you go. But weight versus aero depends on the ratio of each. So for example, on an 8% climb, a 1 kilogram weight saving going to make a 3 watt difference of power, which is almost nothing. And because a typical road bike is something in the region of 10% of your total system weight, so you and the bike and your kit combined, that 1 kilogram saving on a bike, while massive on a bike itself, going from 7.5 kilos to 6.5 kilos say, but as part of a system, it's more like 1 or 2%, which is almost nothing. And that, I think, is why aero is such an important factor of riding and racing bikes, because whatever speed you're riding at, whether you're racing or riding for fun, you have to push yourself and the bike through the air. And it's why I think most bike brands are actually trying to make bikes that are both aero and lightweight. The likes of the Tarmac, the Emonda, the Super 6, and why there's a balance between optimal weight and aerodynamics. And it's why I don't think we'll ever see a new Specialized Venge, a pure aero bike focused entirely on aerodynamics and sod the weight, and why we haven't seen more bike brands copy the Specialized Aethos since it launched 2 years ago. Either they can't with the Orbea Orca, or they don't want to because there's no real market or competitive advantage to a bike that's as lightweight as possible and sod the aero. And that's reflected in some of the new bikes we've seen in testing at the Tour of France and Furrowfield that haven't actually launched yet, such as Ridley's new bike, which appears to be more aero than the current Helium lightweight bike, and less aero than the outright aero bike, the Noah, and also the new Tarmac SL8, if it is that bike, which I talked about last week, appears to be a bit more aero, but a bit lighter than the current SL7. So not a real focus in one direction at the expense of the other. And that's why I think the majority of race bikes being developed and being made and being sold going forward will tend to be these sorts of bikes. And pure aero and pure climbing lightweight bikes will be outliers of people who really don't care about weight or aerodynamics and not the other. They don't want that well-rounded, balanced bike. They just want the lightest bike for bragging rights at the cafe or whatever it might be. Or you just spend all your time riding up and down mountains, which I certainly don't do. So it is a really interesting topic, well I think so anyway, and one I want to try and demonstrate with a real world test between an aero bike and a lightweight bike in an upcoming video. So if that isn't worth hitting the subscribe button right here, I don't know what is. And if you want to see a video on the best Aero race bikes currently available, then watch a video right up here. But that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again very soon.